It is with a heavy heart that I am doing this episode 9, the Gourmanché Man. I am doing it in dedication and in honor and celebration of a Gourmanché Man. His funeral was today. Today is the 26th day of the 8th month of the year 2026. He was a volunteer, a VDP in Burkina Faso, a part of the Progressive Revolution. His mother is a widow already, and he was her first boy. Today is the funeral, and I got news earlier on in the day. Today was scheduled to be episode 9 of our weekly Gourmanché recording, and I am very pleased that I made the decision to continue to do the episodes. His mother is Gourmanché, a sister on this journey. My sister, you are in my palau. My sister, today is a sad day, like many days where many families are having funerals for their sons and daughters who are volunteers with the VDP. My sister, Selimani, my sister. His name is Theophile, and Theophile now has a widow, and they both shared one child who is 1 year old. In tribute to Theophile, the first son of our dear sister Selimani, who is also a widow, and to the widow of Theophile, who has one child who is 1 year old. Episode 9, The Gourmanché Man, is a tribute to you. The Gourmanché Man. Welcome back to the Gourmanché series. Gourmanché, the people who refused to disappear. A series exploring the history, identity, culture, and continuing life of the Gourmanché people. I am your host, Nunnaali, Mòandili, Tienma, Dugidi, Manūpūgsiba Day. Lady O. Today we turn our attention to the Gourmanché Man. Not to create a stereotype and not to suggest that every Gourmanché man and every man in every Gourmanché community has lived in exactly the same way, but to ask a deeper question. Historically, what has a man been expected to carry? The answer that emerges from older ethnographic research is responsibility. Michel Cartwright's work on Gourmanché family relations is especially useful here because he recorded not simply household structures, but expectations attached to relationships. He also warned that an anthropologist can sometimes learn more about what people say ought to happen than about what happens in every household. That warning matters. Cultures give us ideals. Human beings live those ideals imperfectly. So, throughout this episode, when I speak of tradition, I am speaking about documented expectations and patterns, not declaring that every Gourmanché man, past or present, fits one mold. The Gourmanché world spans communities, generations, and modern national borders. Men today live in villages and cities, work on farms and in offices, practice different religions, migrate, study, marry, remain single, raise children, and negotiate a world their grandfathers could scarcely have imagined. Yet underneath those differences are enduring questions. What does a man owe his family? What does leadership mean? What does protection mean when danger is not only physical? And what must one generation teach the next if a people intends not merely to survive, but to remain itself? Family responsibility. Provider, husband, and father. One of the clearest responsibilities recorded in Cartwright's study concerns provision. He records a Gourmanché formulation that the husband gives the ration of millet. In an agricultural society, that sentence carries much more weight than a modern phrase such as bringing home the groceries. Millet represented labor, land, rainfall, storage, planning, and survival. To provide grain was to participate in the continuity of the household. The household itself could be larger than the modern Western nuclear family. Geographical and ethnographic studies describe concessions in which a senior family head might live alongside wives, children, younger brothers, and other relatives. A man's obligations therefore existed inside an extended network. His choices could affect more than his wife and biological children. Fatherhood also connected one generation to another. Land, work, family reputation, practical knowledge, and social obligations could pass through paternal relationships. In farming communities, fathers might allocate land to married sons. Senior men could retain influence in family decisions even after younger men establish households of their own. But I want to bring this history into the present. What does provision mean today? If a young Gourmanché man earns a salary in a city rather than harvesting millet, has the responsibility disappeared? I would argue that the form may change while the underlying question remains. Can the people who depend on you rely upon you? Do your decisions create stability or instability? Do you prepare for tomorrow as well as today? Provision is also not merely financial. A father provides example. He provides discipline, presence, memory, and instruction. A man can put food on a table and still fail to provide emotional or moral security. Conversely, a man struggling economically may still give his children language, history, courage, and a sense of belonging. This is why cultural expectations deserve to be discussed rather than romanticized. Tradition becomes meaningful when we understand the values underneath the practice. Millet may no longer be the only measure of provision, but responsibility remains a powerful measure of adulthood. Leadership. Authority with obligations. Leadership is the second theme in our episode, but it is important to define it carefully. Gourmanché political and social history does not support a simplistic picture in which one man possesses unlimited authority over everyone below him. Historical work on Gulma describes layered authority. Households, lineages, villages, provinces, and traditional political offices existed in relationship with one another. The same principle helps us think about the household. A senior man can possess real authority, but authority existed within obligations. Leadership meant being answerable for decisions affecting other people. In an agricultural household, a careless decision about grain, planting, livestock, land, or family relations could have consequences lasting months or years. This gives us a very different picture of leadership from domination. Leadership is not merely the right to speak first. It is the burden of thinking beyond oneself. That distinction is relevant today. A young man may not inherit the same social position his grandfather held. Education, urbanization, migration, salaried employment, and new household arrangements have changed the distribution of resources. Women may control businesses and income. Young adults may live far from their elders. National law operates alongside customary expectations. Islam, Christianity, and older Gourmanché religious traditions may shape families differently. So the question is not whether the old structure can simply be frozen in time. The question is whether the ethic of accountable leadership can survive transformation. For me, that is where this history becomes contemporary. Leadership that demands respect but refuses responsibility is incomplete. Authority without service becomes entitlement. A man who wants to be heard must also learn to listen. Because a household is not an audience, it is a network of human beings whose lives are affected by one another. If we are asking what makes a Gourmanché man, perhaps one answer is this: not the amount of power he can claim, but the amount of responsibility he is willing to carry well. Protection, more than physical defense. The third theme is protection. The word can immediately create an image of physical defense, and historically, the protection of land, household, harvest, and community certainly mattered. But protection is larger than fighting. A man protects a household when he plans before scarcity arrives. He protects children when he teaches them how to recognize danger. He protects family relationships when he refuses unnecessary conflict. He protects elders when he does not abandon them. He protects cultural inheritance when he teaches a language, a genealogy, a proverb, a story, or a principle that would otherwise disappear. This broader understanding is particularly important in the 21st century. What threatens a family today may be unemployment, displacement, loss of language, insecurity, migration, debt, or separation across borders. Physical strength alone cannot solve those problems. Protection requires judgment. It also requires restraint. A person who creates fear inside the household cannot credibly claim to be its protector. Protection and care belong together. This is an area where I would especially want Gourmanché men and women themselves to define the word. An elder may understand protection through farming, land, and kinship. A younger father may think immediately about school fees and education. A man living abroad may protect connection by sending resources home and making sure his children know where their family comes from. The outward form changes. The responsibility to create safety and continuity can remain. And this is why I resist reducing African manhood to the warrior image. A warrior may defend a boundary in a moment of danger. A responsible man must defend the future every day. He does it through work, wisdom, discipline, preparation, and care. From boyhood to manhood. Traditional societies often distinguish biological age from social adulthood. Gourmanché ethnographic research includes accounts of male initiation and circumcision traditions in particular communities. These practices could mark transitions and bring boys into new relationships with adult knowledge and responsibility. Sacred traditions require caution. A podcast should never treat restricted knowledge as entertainment. Something being described in an academic publication does not automatically mean that a host has cultural permission to expose every detail. What matters for our discussion is the principle of formation. How does a community prepare a boy to become a man whom others can trust? That question may be more important than the ritual details themselves. Who teaches him discipline? Who teaches him how to work? Who tells him the history of his people? Who corrects him when he is selfish? Who teaches him what he owes women, children, elders, and community? Who teaches him that adulthood is not freedom from responsibility, but entrance into greater responsibility? Modern life can weaken these deliberate transitions. A birthday arrives automatically. Maturity does not. A person can become legally adult without ever being intentionally formed for adult responsibility. This gives the Gourmanché experience relevance beyond Gourma. Every society must answer the formation question. If elders do not teach boys what adulthood means, someone else will. Peers, social media, popular culture, political movements, commercial advertising, religious radicalization. The challenge is not to reproduce every older custom unchanged. The challenge is to preserve intentional formation. A culture that wants responsible men has to teach boys what responsibility looks like. Cultural expectations in a changing world. Culture is never motionless. The Gourmanché man of today inherits a world shaped by ancestors, colonialism, national borders, religious change, schools, cities, migration, new technologies, and global media. This does not mean identity disappears. It means identity is negotiated. Older expectations may remain powerful while the economic conditions that supported them change. A man may be expected to provide while jobs are scarce. He may be expected to remain close to extended family while employment takes him hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. He may value his language while his children are educated primarily in French or another national language. He may inherit customary expectations while living under modern civil law. These tensions deserve empathy and honest discussion. We should neither romanticize the past nor assume modernization automatically improves every relationship. The deeper question is what should endure? Responsibility? Yes. Care for family? Yes. Respect for elders? Yes. While also recognizing that age does not make every decision correct. Protection? Yes. If protection means creating safety rather than controlling others. Leadership? Yes. If leadership remains accountable. Culture survives partly because people learn how to distinguish a value from one historical expression of that value. The expression can change while the values continues. What must never disappear? So after looking at family responsibility, leadership, protection, and the transition into adulthood, how should we describe the Gourmanché man? I would begin with relationship. He does not exist as an isolated individual. He is somebody's son, perhaps somebody's brother, husband, father, uncle, or elder. He belongs to a household, a lineage, a community, and a history. His identity carries obligations. But I also want the last word to remain open rather than closed. Academic research can help us recover older patterns, but living Gourmanché people must tell us what those patterns mean now. So I leave you with 4 questions. What makes a good Gourmanché man today? What responsibilities from earlier generations must never disappear? Which expectations need to change? And what must boys learn now if they're going to carry Gourmanché identity into another century? Next week, we move naturally from adulthood to elderhood. Episode 10 is Growing Old Gourmanché. We will explore respect for elders, the transmission of wisdom, family responsibility, and what happens when the chain between generations begin to weaken. Until then, remember this. A people survives not only because its history is remembered, but because somebody accepts responsibility for carrying it forward. Thank you for listening to the Gourmanché, the people who refuse to disappear. This history is strongest when scholarship and living memory are allowed to speak to one another. Join me for the next episode as we continue the journey.